Welcome to Channel 17, the Town of Colonie Government Channel.
Hello and welcome to Getting to Know You. I'm your host, Robert Jaquay. On today's show, we're going to be talking about adult literacy. What happens in today's world when we find out that an adult cannot read or write? And what can we do about it? Our guests today are Robert Stevens, the Executive Director of Literacy Volunteers Mohawk, Hudson, and Liz Allen, his Program Director. Let's go meet them and find out the answers to these questions. Liz and Bob, thank you very much for agreeing to be on the show today.
Thank you.
Thank
We're
you for
happy to
having
be
us.
here.
Before we start talking about literacy volunteers and volunteerism in our area with literacy, what I've done with other guests is ask them to give us a bit of their background, how you came to be at the present position you're at, your history as it were. So we'll start with you, Bob.
Bob, I'm a lifelong resident of the town of Colonie and a graduate of Colonie Central High School and Siena College. So I feel very much my roots are here and live now only about a half a mile from the library here, so feel very much at home here in the library. My work history has been pretty significantly in the for-profit field as an entrepreneur, and I've owned 2 or 3 different businesses and came to the literacy volunteers world via the fact that I'd been on several not-for-profit boards. And after I sold the last business, was looking for an opportunity to do something in the not-for-profit arena and came to Literacy Volunteers 6 years ago. I've been through the Literacy Volunteers training as both English for Speakers of Other Languages tutor and a basic literacy tutor, and had a ESL student, a young woman from Poland. So I've experienced that part of Literacy Volunteers along with the administrative side of the work.
Liz.
Well, I started out as a literacy volunteer myself. Prior to that, I had many years of experience as an editor and writer, and I too was looking for something different to do, but I wasn't sure what. So I decided to do some volunteer work, and I began working with a young woman from Albania, an Albanian from Albany. And actually there are a number of Albanians
Really?
in Albany. I was not aware of that until I met her and her family and her friends. But I love the work so much that I decided to go back to graduate school and get a degree in teaching English as a second language. And I just graduated from SUNY's program, Master of Science program, last May. And lo and behold, a few months later, a job opening came up in the very Literacy Volunteers agency that I had first connected with. So I was very pleased to join the organization.
Great. I bet they're glad to have you as well.
We sure are.
How long has Literacy Volunteers been established in this area?
Well, we are about to celebrate our 40th anniversary. Literacy Volunteers, there were 2 separate affiliates. One served Albany County and one served Schenectady County. They were merged in January of 2000, but both of those affiliates started in 1967. So in a couple of months we're going to celebrate our 40th anniversary here serving the Capital District. And in that time we have served well over 10,000 students in our program, probably closer to 20,000.
Now this is part of a national initiative or program.
Yes, Literacy Volunteers is part of Pro-Literacy America, which also has an international arm. So there's a Pro-Literacy International. Domestically, there are about 1,100 affiliates throughout the United States. In New York State, there are just under 50 affiliates, and nearly every county in the state is served by a Literacy Volunteers affiliate.
You know, I see the ad on television, the importance of reading and reading to your children, but the reality is that some people just can't read. or write. One would like to think that they do, but they don't. So that's a nationwide issue, isn't it?
It certainly is.
It is. And in fact, the U.S. is ranked 49th among 150 nations in terms of its literacy rate, so 1/3, which is kind of shocking when you think of the money that we spend on education in this country. And they've done 2 surveys, national surveys, one in 1993 and one in 2003. It's called the National Assessment of Adult Literacy, and they wanted the U.S. government wanted to find out exactly what kinds of problems adults were having, and what their different types of literacy skills were in terms of prose literacy, which would be reading per se, document literacy, which has to do with reading applications, signs, things that are all around in your environment. What am I forgetting, Bob? Numerical literacy, abilities in math and that sort of thing.
Numeracy. And financial literacy, understanding things like loan applications and bank accounts and consumer loan information.
What do they do, take samples, or do they have I'm trying to imagine how they find this information out.
Yes, they do. They take samples and by reading passages and ascertaining the individual's ability to comprehend the materials that have been given to them, then they can measure their reading level. And in fact, in New York State, this time took the option to have a separate assessment done of the state adult literacy, which was not done back in 1992. And it was found that just under 50%, 49% of New Yorkers, adults, read at a basic level or below, which means that even reading things like menus and a roadmap and a basic employment application and basic newspaper articles are difficult for nearly 50% of New Yorker adults.
What grade level does that? Does it?
5th or below.
5th grade or below.
Well, that would be the basic literacy. Below basic literacy is when it's even lower than that. It's maybe 1st grade or
Really?
lower.
Yeah.
So you talked about the New York State picture. We bring it down to the national. Is there money that's? Is there money that's devoted to this from the national level?
Yeah, there is national money. There are state dollars. The national dollars are mostly Workforce Investment Act dollars, and the dollars are parceled out to the states, and the money is mostly targeted for work-related adult education initiatives to help people get the skills so that they'll be employable, or to have better employment skills so that they're able to work or get a better job. There is also state money. It's adult literacy education money, and the bulk of the adult literacy education money in New York State, which is just $3.3 million a year statewide, comes to literacy volunteers.
Okay, and then you have to do other things to add money to your budget.
Yes, we do. Even though all of our direct services are delivered by volunteers, and in our affiliate, we have as many as 350 to 370 volunteer tutors a year working with 400 plus students, and they're donating between 26 and 30,000 hours. Our tutors are donating to the program. It still costs money. It costs money to reach out to tutors, to get the tutors trained, to bring the students in, to get them screened, to have them tested, and for the ongoing expenses of that program, and for the reporting that we have to do to the education department when all of that is done.
2 key words I keep thinking about, and maybe it's obvious to people who are viewing this, but the word adult, it is really an adult program for adults. How do you define an adult? When do you become an adult when it comes to literacy?
16 or over,
Okay.
and the younger adults cannot be in school. I mean, they cannot be in the public schools.
Okay. So, I mean, a school wouldn't necessarily direct a student into your level to you for any kind of assistance. It's
Well, as Liz said, our program would take students age 16 and over.
Right.
Truly, if they're between 16 and 18, even sometimes between 16 and 21, we're encouraging them back into the school system, for to get help. So we like to say that we have students between 18 and 80 and everywhere in between. The predominant number of students are probably from the early 20s to the mid 30s, but there's, it really does cover the gamut.
Now, people, I mean, are obviously reticent about, letting people know that this is an issue with them. Embarrassed, shy, you name it. How does someone, cross that threshold?
Well, there are two very distinct populations that we serve. We have a basic literacy program, and the basic literacy program are for those adult students who were probably born here, raised here, went to school here, maybe even graduated from high school here, and still read at or below a 5th grade level. That is the population. It is very hard to identify. They're not holding their hand up saying, I can't read. And because of their inability to read, very often they don't even know that there might be services available to them, or because their reading levels are so low, they may not know. The other population is the English for Speakers of Other Languages program that we have, which serves the immigrant population. And in that population, we might have students who come to us who might be illiterate in their native language. They may not be able to read or write, or they could even have a doctorate in their native language, because that's a conversational English program that we have. And our goal there is to get them to be able to speak the language so that they can interact on a daily basis and get jobs and work with their children's in the education system, with their children's teachers, be able to work their way through the medical program and that sort of thing. That population readily identifies and easily comes to us for two reasons. First of all, there's no shame in saying I want to learn English. As a matter of fact, everybody probably applauds the fact that they want to learn English. And the second thing is, many times that they're part of a community here. They may be part of a Chinese community, they may be part of a Puerto Rican community, they may be part of a Russian community here. And once in their community, they know that there are free services, and our free services are free to the student. They're not without cost, but they are free. Then they have a way to know that, and so they're calling every day. But the basic literacy student, it's much more difficult for them to even identify themselves as being non-readers. When you think about it, if nearly 1 in 5 adults in Albany and Schenectady County, that relates to 60,000 people, if nearly 1 in 5 adults read at or below a 5th grade level, nearly every day we are having interaction with those folks, yet you don't know that they're unable to read. And until I came to Literacy Volunteers, until I understood the program better, and until I walked then in here to the Colonie Library afterward and saw actually students and tutors working here in the library, I had no sense that this was even happening. So students have spent their whole lifetime, basic literacy students have spent their whole lifetime hiding the fact that they can't read, and they create sort of elaborate ways, to get around that.
Is it usually something like that that will prompt them to take another step when they come to the wall and they can't hide it any longer? An employment situation, application, whatever have you, they can't fudge it any longer.
Absolutely.
That's right. They might be looking for a promotion, or they might need to get their driver's license, things that they really need for survival. Or it might be a family member or a spouse who might encourage them.
Now bringing it to the local level, I mean, you have people. I'm still curious as to how someone actually comes about to do this. For instance, we have a program here now that we got grant money for to work with volunteers. What do you do? Do you advertise that? I mean, it's something that how does someone know that you exist?
Okay, well, let's talk about the student first, and then we'll talk about the prospective volunteer.
Okay.
The student, how does the student know we exist? Well, for years, and we talked earlier, we've been around for 40 years, and for probably at least half of those 40 years, we have really done very little to advertise the fact that we're there, because our phone rings every day and people are calling wanting services, and we always have a waiting list. Because we always have a waiting list, then a significant part of the staff job is the other side of the coin, which is recruiting the tutors and getting the tutors trained to work with those folks who are on our waiting list. Now, the way that prospective tutors hear about us in the Colonie Library, this grant that we're working on, and the grant is just one example, is because of the grant, we were able to do a direct mail, and we were able to target a prospective audience of folks who we believe, would likely come out and volunteer as tutors, and we did a direct mail to them. And then they contact our office, find out more information if they want more information. Very often they said they've known about literacy volunteers for years, but now it's convenient because the training's going to be here at the library, or they've retired, or their kids have gone off to college or something, and so now they're ready to volunteer. And we know that a big percentage of our population in terms of the of tutors are the baby boomers. And we know that population is growing, and there's been a lot of publicity about that recently. What's going to happen to us baby boomers as more of us have more free time, and so we're very happy for us that they are natural tutors for us, and they do come out. And just this recent training that's happened here at Colonie was one of the biggest trainings that we've had in a long time, with over 20 tutors trained here. Our typical tutor training class is probably 12 to 15.
Okay.
But with over 20 here, that was very successful. We were very happy about it.
All right, we've talked about this, potential vast arena of volunteers. Supposing someone really feels attached to this program and would like to become a volunteer, Bob, how do they do it?
Well, the first thing that needs to happen is, of course, they need to contact our program and let us know that they want to volunteer, and then we'll share information with them about what it takes to be a literacy volunteers tutor.
And we're going to put the number up there, phone number.
Very good. We'll do that. We would inform them that the commitment is to a 15-hour training that's usually spread out over 5 or 6 weeks. And in order to be a tutor for literacy volunteers, you have to be age 21 or older and be able to read, write, and speak English, and a high school graduate.
Okay.
And I think it's important for people to know that really anyone can be a literacy volunteer tutor that meet that criteria. To be a tutor for the English for Speakers of Other Languages program, you don't need to know another language. It's an English-only program. And if you can read, you can teach someone else how to read.
Now, do you have trainers? You train the trainers, or do you actually do the training yourself? I mean, you train someone to train, but do you train other people to go out and train?
Yes, we do.
I guess that's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, we have a staff person that can give the training, but we also train tutors who are very capable and very interested in training other tutors.
Now, if someone goes through the curriculum, do they have a chance to test it out and work it out? I mean, so they don't just go cold and become a volunteer right away and work with a student, right?
Well, actually, toward the end of the training, each prospective tutor is matched with a student.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then when they begin to meet, and the typical commitment that we ask from a tutor is that they will agree to tutor for between 1.5 to 2 hours per week, year round. Now, we know that people will take breaks for vacations and holidays and that sort of thing, and we ask them to make a 1-year commitment. We also ask for a commitment from the student. And certainly this is a lot of work for the student, and the students have to know that. So there's an interview and intake process for the student also. Then once they are matched, once a student and a tutor are matched, and that's done geographically, it's done by time of day, and many other things, they pick a place to meet, and very often that's at a library.
Okay.
And we have relationships with many of the area libraries where tutoring is taking place. But it can happen at McDonald's. It can really happen anywhere where two individuals can get together in a fairly quiet place and spend 1 hour to 2 hours a week together.
Now, just to be clear, you're attaching 2 people, but is that for the whole year, those same 2 people, or does a student, you get different students, the tutors?
Generally speaking,
Same person?
It's the same person, but if one person moves out of the area or for whatever reason can't continue in this, as part of the session, then we can match them with another person. It's not a problem.
And basically the skill sets are that they can read. And now what about writing? What does writing have anything to do in here?
Writing, with the basic literacy students, there's more focus on writing than with the English as a second language students, because many of them, they speak the language already, and that's usually where their skills fall down, is with reading and writing. And we work with them. We have something called the language experience approach, in which if let's say the basic literacy student has no writing skills whatsoever, or very limited writing skills, that the student would dictate a simple story, something that happened to them that day, anything that meant something to himself or herself, and the tutor would take down the story. And then, because the story emanates from the student himself or herself, it has a lot of meaning, and then those words have more meaning, and they have the motivation to want to read those words. And that's one of the most successful techniques that we have with beginning literacy students, is having them read their own words. It's very effective.
I imagine there's a tremendous sense of pride once this has been accomplished. I can imagine people feel so much better about themselves. They can transact life more easy.
Certainly, there's a lot of feeling of success, that the student has when they're able to read something that they weren't able to read before. There's also a lot of feeling of gratification on the tutor's part, that they're able to help the student with this, and very often there becomes a lifelong friendship between the student and the tutor out of this process. It's also important to know that in a literacy volunteers program, and one of the reasons that it's successful is that part of the intake process of students is identifying the student's goal. This is not about what we want for the student. And this is not a workbook-based program that says for the student, if you start on this workbook, by the end of the workbook, you're going to have accomplished something. We ask students to identify their particular goal for this program. And as Liz said before, that goal might be as simple as getting a driver's license, and they want to be able to read the manual so they can get a driver's license. But then when they find that they've had that success, and it may be a very minimal success, then they'll want to go on and do other things. And of course, some of the things, the stories are very moving. A lot of the stories, students will come to us with many different reasons for wanting, to learn to read. The ones that are particularly emotional, I think, are those students who come and they want to be able to read so that they can read to their children. And they recognize the fact that they don't want their children to have to go through life the way that they went through their life. And one of the when I had first come to Literacy Volunteers 6 years ago, and we do a recognition event every year, we had a young man stand up who is in his 30s and is like 6'7" tall and 300 pounds, and had been a football star in high school. And he came to Literacy Volunteers, and he got up to read his story to us that he had written himself. And he said that I came to Literacy Volunteers because I want to read to my daughter, who is 2 years old. And here is this man, who wanted so much for his daughter to have what he didn't have. And he's still a student in our program. And 4 years later, he was able to write back to me in an email something that he couldn't do before that, that he's able to write emails, that he's able to converse with his family through emails, and that he now helps his daughter, who is now in first grade, of course. He helps her with her homework. They work together on spelling, and in the last week, his daughter had gotten 2 100s on her spelling test. And really, it's about that he knows now that his daughter isn't going to have to do and suffer through life the way he has. And so, it's just one example of the motivation that many students have to come to the
Do
program.
people actually go to school themselves? I mean, do they follow this by feeling that they can maneuver this, so they enroll in some kind of a real curriculum for education?
Well, they might, and we would certainly encourage them to do that. But one of the things that we have to realize about this program is these are adults,
Okay.
and 90+% of our students, they're working and they have jobs and they have families. And it's very difficult for them. It's difficult for them in their life even to find, that hour and a half or 2 hours a week to do this, plus do some homework. So while they may desire to, and while some of them certainly do go beyond, they lead very full lives.
So it's a practical application, basically.
Right.
Now, do you work with other agencies? Educational agencies or other
Yes,
groups?
well, we have a good relationship with the adult education, like the learning centers connected with the school districts, Washington Irving Adult Center and the
Adult Learning Center.
Adult Learning Center in Albany. They will often send us students who don't test high enough to be able to succeed in the classes that they have for adult learners there.
Do people actually make referrals, or is there any kind of referral kind of
Well,
thing? Or
there are referrals, but another important thing to know about our program is that every student must come to us on their own.
Okay.
So if you were to identify someone who's a low-level reader and call me up and say, Bob, I have somebody who'd be ideal as a student for your program, we would say, sure, give that person our phone number and tell them to call,
Okay.
because that's the very first step. It is a lot of work, and they have to self-identify that they're ready to participate in the program.
Now, how do you define the area you serve, Mohawk, Hudson? I mean, where,
Albany and Schenectady counties.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Albany and Schenectady.
Now, there are literacy volunteer agencies in other counties?
Most of the other counties in the state have a literacy volunteers affiliate. There's a very good affiliate in Rensselaer County. There's another affiliate that covers Warren, Washington, and Saratoga counties. So that people throughout the capital region can pretty much find literacy volunteers affiliate.
Okay. We're getting close to the end of the show, believe it or not. And is there something that we haven't talked about that you'd like to mention, or do you want to highlight something that could really reinforce anything?
I think I would repeat that if people out there think that they want to volunteer for our program or have a notion that they might want to volunteer for our program, that we would encourage them to contact our office. We will talk to them about the program. We can sit down and have a conversation about it. Because certainly it's incredibly important to our program that we get more volunteers. There are always students waiting for your help, and that yes, if you're listening to this program, you probably have the skills to be able to be a literacy volunteer.
Way back I talked about those two important words. One was adult, but the other really important word is volunteer. And you need volunteers, and you're looking for them, and it looks like people can do this, which is very important. So. It's been really great having you on today. Thank you, Bob and Liz, both for coming here.
Well, thank you for
Thank
the
you.
opportunity to be here.
Thank you for joining us on this edition of Getting to Know You. I hope you enjoyed the show and will join us next week. Until then, have a good one.